All right, so Kanye and Bianca, they split up. Big surprise, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it did seem like kind of a wild ride from the start.
It really did. We've got articles here from TMD and the Daily Mail,
Oh, yeah, those are always reliable
and
sources.
they're packed with details about this whole thing. We're going to take a deep dive into their relationship, the controversies, and try to figure out how it all fell apart. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds fascinating.
Okay, so rewind back to January 2023. They get married in secret just a few months after Kanye's divorce from Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, that was fast, like a rebound wedding almost.
Right, and Bianca was architect at Yeezy at the time.
So they met through work.
Exactly.
Interesting. Most couples don't go from colleagues to spouses that quickly.
No, they don't. But this is Kanye we're talking about. Remember that song Sensory Overload?
Oh, yeah, the one dedicated to Bianca?
Yep, and the lyrics even talk about celibacy before marriage.
Wow. It all just seems so intense right from the start.
Totally. Then there's the honeymoon at the Imangiri Resort in Utah.
Oh, yeah, that place is like a celebrity playground. Super luxurious.
It is. We're talking suites that cost thousands a night. They even rented this exclusive villa. The price wasn't even listed publicly.
Wow, must be nice.
And shortly after that, Bianca meets Kanye's daughter, North, at Nobu in Malibu.
I remember that. It all seemed kind of fairy tale-ish in the beginning.
It did, but then things started to shift. Their appearance at the Grammys, that was a turning point.
The Grammys. Oh, yeah, with that outfit.
Yeah, that dress. Or lack thereof, I should say.
It was pretty revealing, wasn't it? Like, barely there.
It caused a lot of buzz, to put it mildly. And then it came out that Kanye had actually told her to make a scene by dropping her coat and showing it off.
Really?
Yeah. And there's even a lip reader who analyzed their interaction on the red carpet, and it seems like Kanye was orchestrating the whole thing.
That's kind of weird, like he was using her for attention.
Yeah, it's definitely raises some questions about their relationship dynamic, like who was really in control.
Yeah. It's hard to tell what was genuine and what was just for show.
And then things got really messy after the Grammys. Kanye goes on this anti-Semitic rant on X, formerly Twitter.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
It wasn't just some random tweet. He called himself a Nazi, praised Hitler.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was shocking. And of course, there was a huge backlash. He got temporarily banned from X. Celebrities condemned him.
Not a good look.
Not at all. And then there was that Super Bowl ad for his Easy line with a swastika on a t-shirt.
Oh, man. That's just asking for trouble.
It was. Shopify shut down his online store immediately. It's like he was on this self-destructive path.
And Bianca was right there through all of it.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how she was dealing with all this, what kind of pressure she was under.
Definitely. It couldn't have been easy being in that situation, especially with everything happening so publicly.
Right. But we'll dive more into her side of the story in the next part. Before we go, though, we've got to talk about Kanye's legal troubles. He's got a lawsuit on his hands from his former assistant.
Oh, right. I heard about that. Sexual harassment allegations, right.
Exactly. He's denied the accusations, of course, but it adds another layer of complexity to the whole situation.
Yeah, it does. I can't imagine that having a lawsuit hanging over your head helps a relationship.
Especially when it's so public. It all seems pretty overwhelming, right? We've got this crazy romance that just spirals into controversy and chaos.
Yeah, it's a lot. A whole lot. And we've only just scratched the surface.
We have. Stay tuned, because in part 2, we're going to unpack what all of this means for Bianca and try to understand what led to their sudden split. Okay, so we left off talking about all the fallout from Kanye's, antics and his legal troubles.
Yeah, I mean, it's all pretty heavy stuff.
It is, and it's easy to focus on Kanye, right? But we can't forget about Bianca. She was right there in the thick of it all.
Yeah, totally. I mean, can you imagine going from, like, relative obscurity to suddenly being married to Kanye West?
It's got to be a wild ride, and not necessarily a good one.
Right, like all this attention, all this scrutiny, and then on top of that, you're dealing with Kanye's behavior.
Yeah, his behavior was definitely not making things easier.
Not at all. Like, publicly praising Hitler, that's not just controversial, that's, like, deeply offensive and harmful.
It is. It makes you wonder what kind of impact that had on Bianca, being associated with all that.
Yeah, was she okay with it? Did she feel pressured to defend him? Go along with his narrative?
Right, and remember those tweets where Kanye was talking about having dominion over her?
Oh, yeah, those were creepy.
Seriously, like it's giving very controlling vibes.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it makes you question how much agency she really had in that relationship.
And then there's the whole mental health aspect. Kanye's been open about his bipolar disorder in the past.
Right, and some people are saying his recent actions could be signs of a manic episode.
It's hard to say for sure, and obviously we're not doctors.
No, of course not.
But it's something to consider, right? Like, mental health can definitely play a role in relationships and behavior.
Absolutely. It doesn't excuse harmful actions, but it can explain some things.
Yeah, exactly. It's a complex issue. But regardless of the specifics, it's clear Kanye is going through some stuff.
And it was all happening so publicly.
All of it. And the split itself, too, just adds more fuel to the fire.
Yeah, it's messy. It hurts his image even more.
Professionally, he's taking a major hit. Brands are dropping him. People are boycotting his music.
It's a CR nightmare.
It is. But what about Bianca? Where does she go from here?
Yeah, what does her future look like? She's pretty new to all this fame and attention.
Right. And now she's caught up in this huge controversy.
Well, at least she's getting a pretty hefty settlement.
Yeah, apparently she's set to receive $5 million.
Wow. That's a lot of money.
It is. It could give her some financial security while she figures things out.
Yeah, she'll definitely have options. But it's still a complicated situation, like legally and financially.
It is. High-profile relationships, especially when there's a big wealth gap, they can get messy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But let's zoom out for a second, Look at the bigger picture here. This isn't just about Kanye and Bianca.
Right.
It says something about fame, about wealth, about mental health,
It really does, like how those things can build you up and tear you down.
and the role of social media. It's huge.
Oh, absolutely. Social media amplifies everything. It can give people a voice, but it can also be a breeding ground for hate and negativity.
It's a double-edged sword for sure. And in this case, it feels like it played a big role in the whole drama.
Yeah, no doubt. It makes you think, right? Like, what's our responsibility when it comes to social media and celebrity culture?
It does. It's easy to get caught up in the gossip and the spectacle.
Yeah, we gotta remember there are real people behind the headlines.
Real people with real feelings. It's a good reminder to approach these stories with a bit more empathy and understanding.
Well said. Now, before we wrap up, what stood out to you the most in this whole Kanye and Bianca saga?
It's wild, right? Like this whole thing with Kanye and Bianca, it makes you think.
It really does. Makes you think about a lot of things.
Before we wrap up, I want to zoom out even more. Like, what does this story tell us about fame? Relationships?
It's a good question, and honestly, it's hard not to see some parallels with Kanye's past, especially his relationship with Kim.
Yeah, you're right. Their divorce was huge, super public, and now this. It's like there's some repeating patterns here.
Remember when Kim was on the Kardashians talking about how hard it is to live with someone who's changed so much?
I didn't say his name, but come on.
It's hard not to connect that to Kanye, right? And how his behavior might have affected things with Bianca, too.
Totally. It's like history repeating itself. The impulsive decisions, the controversial stuff, the instability.
Makes you wonder if this is something Kanye needs to work on. You know, for his own sake and for the sake of his relationship.
Like some deeper self-reflection is needed.
Yeah, and it's not about blaming him. It's about recognizing that personal growth is important, especially when you're in the spotlight.
Right. And Kanye has been open about his mental health in the past, bipolar disorder. And he recently said he thinks he's actually autistic, not bipolar.
It's complicated. Mental health is never simple.
Yeah, and no matter what the diagnosis is, it's clear he's struggling. And that affects everything, his relationships, his life.
It reminds us that mental health is important. It's not something to ignore. It needs support, self-awareness, and professional help sometimes.
Definitely. It's also a reminder to be sensitive when talking about these things, not to jump to conclusions.
Exactly. We've covered a lot. What are your biggest takeaways from this Kanye and Bianca deep dive?
Well, for me, it's a reminder that money and fame don't equal happiness. Kanye's got it all, but he's still struggling. It shows that anyone can have relationship problems, no matter how successful they are.
Yeah, I agree. And it also shows how actions have consequences. Kanye's behavior has affected so many people, not just him.
And it's a wake-up call about how we consume celebrity news and social media. Are we too quick to judge? Too harsh?
We forget sometimes that these are real people, not characters in a story.
They have feelings. They get hurt. We need to remember that.
Empathy is important. Understanding is important, especially in this day and age.
Well said. So, one last thought. Do you think this is really the end for Kanye and Bianca?
That's a tough one. Who knows what the future holds? They could get back together, they could move on. Only time will tell.
Only time will tell. But it's been a wild ride watching it all unfold.
Yeah, and we've learned a lot along the way. About fame, relationships, mental health, social media.
So much. And hopefully it's given our listeners something to think about too.
I hope so.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.